Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interests. I enjoy talking with fascinating people who are doing extraordinary things. I release 3 episodes of Newt's World every week, and I want to invite you to listen. Hopefully, we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
All right, News Roundup, Information Overload Hour. Your call's coming up, 800-941-SEAN, our number if you want to be a part of the program. Not only are we following the electoral disaster that is Arizona, we still have, plenty of vote counting going on out in Nevada, and we can't get a real grip on what is outstanding, what's not outstanding. We were told yesterday by Joe Gloria is the guy's name, Clark County, Nevada registrar, saying that they are counting 50,000 votes. Now, the hours leading up to him saying that, it was anticipated that there might be as many as 87,000 votes left in Clark County. Most of them were expected to be like in the state of Arizona, a day of votes dropped off by people that didn't trust the mail system or didn't have the time to mail it and wanted their vote counted for sure. And they felt the only way to do that would be to walk it in. Anyway, here's what Joe Gloria, the Clark County, Nevada registrar, said. By the way, Clark County is the Vegas area of Nevada.
My staff has been working very diligently. We've been here from early in the morning until late at night. We've been fully staffed. We're working as hard as we possibly can in order to get the ballots counted. But whether we like it or not, there's no way that we can move any faster than we're currently moving. We still have over 50,000 ballots that need to be counted. Those are in various stages in the process of validation before they go to the counting board, and finally, ultimately, they get to tabulation where we're able to read them into the system.
No way to move any faster. I have a suggestion. I have a solution. All the people that counted the ballots in Florida, why don't we fly them out to Arizona and Nevada and let them count the votes? Because if you can't count 50,000 votes, we may not know the results till next week sometime. In that period of time, you certainly need help. And if Florida can do 7.5 million in 5 hours, I think those are the people we want counting them. Anyway, joining us now, an interesting story is Victor Joecks is with us. He's a columnist with the Vegas Review-Journal. And what's really interesting about it, he tweeted out Nevada isn't just terrible at counting ballots quickly. Signature verification isn't the fail-safe security measure that officials have claimed. And he pointed out that Clark County accepted my version of someone else's signature on 6 of 11 mail ballot envelopes. In other words, over half the time. Now, what happened is, he's talking about this whole system. I'll let him tell you the whole story himself. Victor, welcome to the program. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Sean. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, can you explain to me how many votes are outstanding, which way they're going, what percentage of the vote outstanding are day of votes that were handed off by people? That tends to profile more Republican or conservative and favor them, at least in Arizona, it's favoring them by like 70%.
Yeah, it's I'd say there's between about 65 to 70,000 votes uncounted in Clark County, the Vegas area. Those are.
Well, wait a minute. Yesterday, the guy said 50,000 votes. Why are we now up to 70,000?
I think he made a mistake yesterday, to put it charitably. I don't know where he came up with that number, because the day before he had given a much larger number, and then they hadn't released that many ballots, that night. So I don't know why he said 50,000. I think that was a mistake.
Well, let me get this straight. Now, this is Thursday after Tuesday's election, and he gives a definitive number to the entire country and your state. And you're telling me that his number was off by 20 to 30,000 votes, which, by the way, in this close Senate race with Adam Laxalt could make the difference between winning and losing?
Well, I mean, the Clark County Election Department has been just had embarrassment after embarrassment, and I think this is one of them. It's potentially he was trying to say, we've counted some votes but haven't released them, and so he wasn't including that in the 50,000. But he's supposed to give these press conferences to provide clarity, and he certainly did not do that.
I can't believe it. So you partook in this experiment, and when I first heard it, I said, this guy Victor Joecks may end up in jail. But in fact, you actually addressed that in your column, that you did nothing illegal. Let's talk about your little experiment, what you did, and what the results were.
Yeah, I wanted to test the accuracy of signature verification because Nevada moved within the last 2 years to sending a mail ballot out to every single voter, whether they wanted one or not, whether they lived at their address or not. And officials would tell us, well, don't worry. Even if you find someone else's ballot or, a political operative finds someone else's ballot, they can't return it because we have signature verification. And so I wanted to put that to the test. I got some people, 11 people, took a picture of their ballot envelope. So I saw their name. I wrote their name in my handwriting, took a picture, sent it back to them. They copied my version of their name. So they wrote it in their own handwriting, but it was how I would have written it, if I had just found the ballot and returned it. And Clark County officials, the Las Vegas area, accepted 6 of those 11 ballots. They went through without being set aside as having a signature mismatch. So that's far from a fail-safe security measure.
I mean, I'm reading the story, and it's a pretty amazing story. Now, how much time did you spend with lawyers at your workplace at the Vegas Review-Journal in going over the legality of this? Because when I read it, I said, this guy may have put himself in legal jeopardy, but I don't believe you did.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at the law. I obviously didn't want to do anything illegal, although I think it's kind of amazing how much of the election process out here is just done on the honor system. It's just, no one's going to cheat, and we're not going to look at anyone who may have cheated. So just trust us. That's not how it should work. But I mean, the law is clear. As long as someone signs their own ballot, that's what has to happen. I can't sign someone else's ballot, but there's nothing in the law that says your signature has to match exactly what you did before, and it can't do that because people's signatures change over time. That's just natural, depending on how fast, how much of a hurry you're in, depending on the surface that you're writing on. People's signatures change, and that's exactly why you shouldn't use signature verification as a way to quote-unquote prove that someone sent in their own ballot, because it's not a unique identifier.
Look, I actually do support it, but for different reasons. In past years in New York, you would see your name, you would see your signature, and you would know which signature they're looking for. For example, I sign a ton of stuff, and my signature has changed dramatically over the years, and it can change day to day based on how tired I am. And, when I signed, for example, my last book, I signed 80,000 books for Live Free or Die. It took a long, long period of time. And if you look at the signatures, you'd say, he didn't do every one of them. I actually did, but they may not all look the same. I know it sounds crazy. So I would say it's not the identifier, but I know the signature. When they used to show it to me when I was voting, my signature on record, I knew which signature I used at the time, and I'd say, okay, I'll do it the way I was doing it at that time. It gives you, but you can't fake that in that sense. In other words, if you were just trying to forge it, it would be far more difficult to forge it because, I kind of have the sloppiest handwriting you've ever seen.
Yeah, and so the other problem out here is that, basically a signature is innocent until proven guilty, and the law instructs officials basically to look for ways that it could pass. And so in order to reject a signature, there has to be multiple significant and obvious differences between the signatures on file and the signature that, that's on the ballot envelope. And the challenge is that everyone learned cursive in basically the same way. And so, everyone generally forms their E's and their L's and their K's in the same way. And so if you're looking at it from the perspective of, well, how can I, show that this is the same signature? You're going to find similarities because, again, this isn't something that's unique. Everyone learned to form their letters in the same basic way, even if, of course, over time, people have their own different versions of it. And so, it's just, that's the fundamental problem is it's not something that's unique to each person. And because signatures change over time, in order to not reject lots and lots of valid absentee ballots or mail ballots, they have to have some flexibility. But that flexibility also allows for the possibility of fraud.
All right, let me ask you this. If, in fact, Joe Gloria is wrong and you're right, that then takes the advantage that was Adam Laxalt's and turns it and flips it over to Senator Masto. Now, would you agree with that analysis? It's that critical.
It is that critical. I think obviously the more votes in Clark County, the better for Cortez Masto and the worse for Laxalt. It looks, there was this idea, and I think with some justification, that, the election day drop-offs will swing more towards Republicans. And from the people pulling the data from the big data file, it looks like, that's not quite happened. It's not quite as Democratic as before, as just the ballots coming in through the post office, but it's not it's not a big Republican swing in these ballots. I think Laxalt's in trouble. He's going to need to kind of make up some ground with where we would expect, how we would expect those ballots to break.
Yeah. And do you know when we're ever going to get a final result, or if we're ever going to get a real a number at this? You think of it, it's Friday. The vote was Tuesday. You would think they would at least know what is outstanding, where it's outstanding, and at least give us the information that people can then make some assumptions with.
Yeah, they really slow walked this. These election day drop-off ballots, they didn't even open the drop boxes until Wednesday, and that was, that's not in the law. The Gloria likes to say, the law requires us to have all these timelines. The law does not require you to go slow in processing these ballots and telling people, how many were from Democrats, how many from Republicans, or from nonpartisan voters. There are timelines that are delayed in terms of late arriving mail, but that's basically fallen off to nothing. And then next week, the provisional ballots, they have to check and make sure someone didn't vote in another part of the state. That's understandable. But, then we're talking about, 10,000 ballots, maybe not 50, 60, and if you include the whole state, 100,000 ballots. Those are the ballots that already should have been counted. Everyone should already know. And if it's just an extremely close election and we have to go to provisionals, then everyone understands, okay, things are just super tight and there's no way to speed that up. But there definitely was a way to speed up the information that was released about the ballots that were already in the possession of the election officials here in Clark County.
Let me backtrack a second. A way to speed up. We have 47 states that gave us results for the most part, with some congressional races outstanding. But even those are now down to a trickle. And every other state was able to give us definitive results in all of these big races, senatorial races, gubernatorial races. And by the way, I'll take my hits. I would have preferred that Lee Zeldin win in New York. I don't like that they don't have voter ID laws in New York. I think that's insane. I would have preferred Tudor Dixon win her race in Michigan, but the results came in. There wasn't this, days long counting that went on. Don't you think fundamentally that it is wrong for the state of Nevada to continue a system that is so fundamentally flawed that it keeps the rest of the nation waiting on edge for days and weeks to get a final result? The system is so flawed there, it has to be fixed, doesn't it?
Well, I sure hope it is fixed. It's an absolute embarrassment, and it should be unacceptable. And it should be unacceptable to people of both parties. I mean, just like you said, whether
exactly
you like the outcome of an election or not, we should at least know the outcome of the election. And there's definitely blame on the legislature. There's definitely blame on the election officials. There's lots of blame to go around. I'm not convinced Democrats are going to look at this and say, "Oh yeah, it's something we got to fix." But I think the public wants it fixed, and it certainly should be fixed.
All right, quick break. We'll come back more with Las Vegas Review-Journal columnist Victor Joecks is with us. 800-941-SEAN on number on this Friday. We'll get to your calls. We'll get you an update on all of this tonight on Hannity, 9 Eastern on the Fox News Channel as we continue.
The radio show the mainstream media loves to hate. This is the Sean Hannity Show.
All right, we continue with the Vegas Review-Journal columnist. Victor Joecks is with us. Do you have any instinct which way you think this race is going to end up? Because, you know, based on what you're saying, you took advantage, in my mind, Adam Laxalt, and you put it in the column of Cortez Masto by adding 30,000 votes.
Yeah, I think Masto's got to be the favorite. Laxalt's path to victory is the election day drop-off ballots in Washoe should favor him slightly. He's likely to pick up a few thousand votes from that in the rural counties, and then he's got to lose these Clark County ballots by less than 20, 25 points. So is it possible? Absolutely, it's possible. But if you were gonna just bet, I think you'd have to say that Masto's the favorite to end up winning by, maybe as little as 3 to 5,000 votes.
Unbelievable. Anyway, we appreciate it. Victor Joecks, thanks so much with the Vegas Review-Journal. We appreciate your time, sir.
Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interests. I enjoy talking with fascinating people across a variety of topics. On Newt's World, we've had some extraordinary guests join us, like former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger.
Ending the war in Vietnam was a necessity in order to help heal the divisions in the country.
John Clifton, the CEO of Gallup.
The world has been winning the war against hunger for 4 decades. In 2014, it switched. We have a serious hunger crisis.
And House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy.
What I've really found the Republican Party to be, it's the party of the people, the working people of America.
I release 3 episodes of Newt's World podcast every week, and I hope you'll find my conversations engaging and informative, and hopefully we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interests. I enjoy talking with fascinating people across a variety of topics. On Newt's World, we've had some extraordinary guests join us, like former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger.
Ending the war in Vietnam was a necessity in order to help heal the divisions in the country.
John Clifton, the CEO of Gallup.
The world has been winning the war against hunger for 4 decades. In 2014, it switched. We have a serious hunger crisis.
And House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy.
What I've really found the Republican Party to be, it's the party of the people, the working people of America.
I release 3 episodes of Newt's World podcast every week, and I hope you'll find my conversations engaging and informative, and hopefully we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
25 till the top of the hour, 800-941-SEAN on this Friday. And I wish we knew the results from Election Day, but sadly we don't. Before we get to the phones, Joey Biden having trouble reading his teleprompter speech. Listen.
The International Energy Agency recently concluded that our significant climate investment will, quote, help turbocharge turbocharge the emerging global clean energy economy. I was reading their quote. Sorry.
It says, okay, end here. Remember he was reading the prompter and it says, stop here. He'll go, and then stop here, which is a note to him, is not meant to be read. Anyway, to our busy phones we go. Carl is in the great state of Texas today. Carl, hi, how are you? Glad you called, sir, and happy Friday to you. I think if you're as tired as I am, you're pretty tired. What's going on?
Happy to speak to you on this Veterans Day, and even happier that Texas sent Beto packing once again. But what I wanted to get your views on is Fetterman going forward, looking back at the debate performance, and not even his performance. A debate is really just a conversation between 2 people at a time. I ask you a question like, hey, Sean, what's your favorite restaurant and why? You have 60 seconds. And that's about all it is, 1 person at a time. Now, for that debate, he needed a teleprompter. He needed built-in pauses so he had a chance to read and process the information before he could come up with an answer. So what are they going to do in the Senate? Are they going to put a teleprompter or some closed captioning system on the floor of the Senate for him?
Listen, I would assume so. I would assume that's possible. Oz didn't have to agree to this, but there wouldn't have been a debate otherwise. And I think it was in the interest of the people of Pennsylvania to at least see one debate. Look, I have a lot of problems with Pennsylvania. Number one, that debate didn't occur until the end of October. By that time, I think they had 600,000 votes cast in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And remember, it's not like Fetterman was being questioned by the media mob. He got the Biden treatment, which is show up hardly anywhere, hide in the basement, have clever people running your social media accounts, making fun of Dr. Oz. He's from New Jersey, crudité, et cetera, and that worked for them. It worked for Biden in many ways. The one thing he couldn't do is go out and give any real long speech. And if he did do an appearance, it would be like 5 minutes or less because he wasn't capable of doing much more. I don't wish him ill health. I don't wish anybody ill health. For me, it was the issues. And sadly, unfortunately, I think, we now look at the final numbers. I think Mastriano lost by 14 points. It's the largest margin, according to Selena Zito, that Shapiro got in terms of being governor, not running for re-election that has happened since like the 1940s. And unfortunately, Mastriano's position, I believe, on abortion played a big part in this, as he makes no exceptions for rape, incest, or the mother's life. I'm giving you political analysis here. I know some people don't agree with that position or may agree with him, but that's not the point. Politically, it's not a viable position, especially in a state like Pennsylvania. And, there was a lot of party switches that went on, or when you vote for one party for governor and another party for the Senate, that's a very hard ask of people, because if you're like me, I went in, every Republican was also on the conservative line. You get to register as a conservative in New York, and I went straight across the ticket and voted for every conservative in New York. And because I prefer to identify myself as I really am, which is a conservative first, and I wish every Republican was more conservative. So I think that vote splitting is what it's called. Look, Oz did it in double digits. He pulled it off in double digits. And it's a very, very difficult thing to do. That's my analysis of it. And the media was complicit. Again, it was very Joe Biden-ish. And unfortunately, the people of Pennsylvania now have the most radical human being ever voted into the United States Senate. Maybe a close second is Raphael Warnock. Although Raphael Warnock on December 6th can be defeated by Herschel Walker, based on some of the news today, that race has even taken on more importance than it had, if that was even possible. So,
well, I just hope for the sake of the people of Philadelphia that Fetterman can find a way to be functional in real time in a meaningful way, because he deserves that now that he's in office.
And it raises another point. Did people really factor in whether or not they'll have a senator that's capable and up to the job and the task of being senator? Now, look, it's certainly not as hard as being a president, but it's a hard job. And but to me, I think most people, Democrats, were so divided. There was no room for nuance. You're going to vote for a Democrat because a Democrat's going to be a rubber stamp for the new Green Deal, radical socialism, a rubber stamp for defund, dismantle, no bail laws, a rubber stamp for open borders, a rubber stamp for no domestic energy production. And, the net result is only going to get worse for we, the people. I think it's going to make it, I think things are economically and in every other way. Joe Biden said he's not going to change a thing. I don't expect him to change a thing. And I had even predicted this, whether Republicans had a red wave or not. We did not predict this red wave. We did just the opposite. I said these races would be razor thin and close. You're seeing that play out in Nevada. You're seeing it play out in Arizona. And I think had people taken a little bit more time and would have considered these things, maybe that wave could have emerged, but it didn't. And people are just, I don't know where they got their information from. Anyway, appreciate the call. Thanks for being with us. Glad you think so much of Pennsylvania and you're in Texas. Dennis is in the great state of New Hampshire, the live free or die state of New Hampshire. Now, Dennis, I don't understand your state either. You elect a common sense conservative and Chris Sununu as your governor. He wins by double digits. And then the same voters that voted for him turn around and they reelect Maggie Hassan, who is a radical leftist, New Green Deal socialist, rubber stamp for Biden and Schumer. And I can't reconcile the thinking behind that. Can you help me out?
I'm trying to figure out the logic in it. I'm a small business owner in New Hampshire, and I'm a traveling technician. I drive around a diesel truck, and I've been paying between $5 and $6 a gallon for the past 15 months at least.
By the way, now we have a shortage of diesel. Things are going to get worse for you. There are trucking companies I know that can't make money going out of business right now. And things are going to get worse before they get better. And on top of that, you live in New Hampshire. You're part of the entire New England electric grid. The electric grid, they're warning you all, may go down this winter because they don't have the natural gas to even keep the grid going. Never mind the natural gas that is going to be needed for people to heat their homes this winter. And on top of that, then you're going to have a 30% price increase, whether you heat your home by oil or gas, and it may be much higher as supplies decrease. That's all happening now.
Yeah, it's scary times. I've got plenty of chopped wood for this winter, but there's people out there that probably don't have that option. So I went out to vote, and it seemed to me there was a lot of people. I went down initially to vote, and the line was down the highway out of the parking lot. So I ended up going back again. There was still a line. And eventually we got in. Then there was a line of people coming out of the door. I got into the line. They said, no, this is all for new registrations. I was like, all right.
So you get to register same day voting. Listen, we got to change. We've got to change this. I go back to the argument that I made earlier, and that is, if Canada and France and South Korea and the UK all use paper ballots all day of, and they get 100% of the vote count that night and nobody questions the results, why don't we go back to that system instead of worrying about whether tabulators are tabulating or whether or not, we can actually count the votes. Florida can count 7.5 million votes and they can do it in, less than 5 hours. Paper ballots, write in your votes, count them up. You have partisan observers watch the voting and watch the vote counting, and we're done. Now, that would be fair to everybody. No Democrat wants my system. Why is that? Because they think that it works out in their favor to have the chaos we're currently having. They don't want voter ID laws. Why? Because it benefits them politically. It's insane. Anyway, appreciate the call. Thomas, Connecticut, next Sean Hannity show. What's up, Thomas? How are you?
Hey, Sean, how's it going?
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, you too. Prior to COVID March 2022, in Blue State, Connecticut, each municipality has a Democrat and a Republican voter registration. Each municipality. We have same-day voting. You must show ID when voting in person. It's a paper ballot when you vote. The machine is not connected to the internet. And at the end of the night, when the poll closes, the machine tabulates the vote. And even 5 minutes before the doors close, people from the campaign or press could go in there, and once they print out the receipt, they'll put one for the public to see, so you can see who voted, who won right then and there. To vote absentee ballot in Connecticut, you have to say a couple of criteria. You have to be active service in the armed forces, absent from town, illness, physically disabled, or duty, or an elected official, or a poll worker. And if there's a recount, Sean, you could have one of your representatives. Each candidate can have a representative there watching the recount. This is before they open up the machine. So if we could do this in Blue State, Connecticut, why can't we do it everywhere else? And this is prior to the COVID of March of 2020.
They can fix this with a blink of an eye. They just have to have the willingness to do it. You know what's missing, Thomas? Common sense, willingness to do it. There's no other reason why. And I don't know how many more times we're going to have to go through this mess before people have had it. People are fed up. But we really, it is, Joe Biden would like to say Republicans are a threat to democracy. apparently that resonated with more people than we know. It doesn't make sense that Republicans are winning, 6 million more votes on House races, and we have, we still haven't closed out the counting in some of these House races. It's unbelievable to me.
Sean, I think what Republicans have to do in these districts that do early voting, they have to get their voters out early, especially now Herschel Walker down in Georgia. Forget about spending money on running ads. Spend money on getting people to knock on doors and make phone calls, especially when early voting happens in Georgia. Get those people out to vote early. That's why you don't have to expect this big number on election day until those states decide to go to one same day voting. The Republican Party has to learn what the Democrats are doing and take advantage of early voting. You can't have what happened with Dr. Oz up in Pennsylvania. The day of the election, he's down by 700,000 votes, and you're trying to make up the early voting from Fetterman on the day of the election. You have to take advantage of early voting.
I think Republicans, if this is going to be the system that the country adopts, which is dumb, then we're going to have to embrace it, and we're going to have to include integrity measures, and that has to happen on the state level. It's we don't want to federalize the elections. If Democrats get a hold of it, forget it. We're in deep trouble. Anyway, thank you, my friend. 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program.
Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interests. I enjoy talking with fascinating people who are doing extraordinary things. I release 3 episodes of Newt's World every week, and I want to invite you to listen. Hopefully, we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.